The call came exactly 7 days after we moved into the house. Not 6. Not 8. 7. Long enough for the smell of fresh paint to settle into the walls. Long enough for the neighbors to wave when they saw us unloading boxes. Long enough for me to believe that maybe, just maybe, this house could save my marriage. I remember the moment with painful clarity. Sunlight spilled across the marble kitchen island Daniel had insisted we install. Half-unpacked boxes crowded the hallway. My husband stood in the living room beside his mother, Linda, laughing over where to place an antique cabinet she'd brought from her condo. It looked normal, comfortable, safe. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. I should have. Or maybe answering it was the first truly smart thing I'd done in years. Hello. For a moment, there was only breathing on the other end. Then an older man spoke quietly. I'm sorry to bother you, he said, but I forgot to disconnect a camera in your living room. My hand tightened around the phone. What? It was linked to my cloud account from before I sold the house, he continued nervously. I accidentally opened the feed today. I saw your husband and his mother talking while you were gone. I frowned, glancing toward the living room where Daniel was smiling at something Linda showed him on her tablet. They were just talking? The man hesitated. No, he said softly. Not just talking. Something cold moved through me. I don't understand. I didn't mean to spy, he said quickly. I lived in that house for 30 years. I forgot the camera was still active. But after what I heard, I thought you deserved to know. My pulse began to pound. What did you hear? Silence. Then, not over the phone. My throat tightened. I saved the footage, he whispered. If you want to see it, come alone. And don't tell your husband. For a second, the world tilted. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where everything crashes at once. It tilted quietly, like a foundation cracking underneath a perfectly beautiful house. Rachel? Daniel's voice drifted from the living room. You okay? I looked up too quickly. Yeah, I lied. Spam call. He smiled easily and turned back toward Linda. That smile hurt more than it should have. Because until that moment, I still trusted it. Daniel and I had been married for 9 years. 9 years of birthdays. 9 years of routines. 9 years of grocery lists and shared passwords and Sunday mornings and whispered conversations in the dark. And somewhere along the way, love had quietly turned into politeness. We weren't the kind of couple who screamed at each other. That almost would have been easier. No, we became the kind of couple who stopped asking hard questions because pretending everything was fine felt less exhausting than admitting it wasn't. The distance between us hadn't arrived all at once. It came slowly, in smaller conversations, in distracted kisses, in nights where he scrolled his phone while I pretended to read, in all the little moments where intimacy quietly died while neither of us acknowledged the funeral. The house was supposed to fix that. A fresh start. That's what Daniel called it. New environment, he'd said while showing me listings on his laptop. No bad memories attached. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. So when he found the perfect house, with bay windows and hardwood floors and enough sunlight to make everything look hopeful, I said yes. I used my inheritance from my father for the down payment. Daniel said it made sense to keep the deed in my name. It protects us both, he told me. At the time, it sounded thoughtful. Now I wondered if it had simply been step one. I told Daniel I was going to the store. He offered to come. I said no too quickly. He noticed. I saw it in the brief flicker behind his eyes. But then Linda called him back into the living room and the moment passed. As I drove away, I looked at the house in my rearview mirror. Beautiful. Quiet. Perfect. It looked like the kind of home people envied. Not the kind where betrayal was already sitting comfortably at the dinner table. The previous owner lived 20 minutes away in a faded bungalow behind a gas station. When he opened the door, he looked exactly like the voice I'd imagined. Thin. Gray-haired. Uneasy. You came, he said softly. I almost didn't. He nodded like he understood. Inside, the house smelled like old books and coffee. He led me to a desk where a laptop glowed in the dim room. I backed everything up, he said nervously. Just in case. My stomach twisted. He clicked a folder labeled with my address. Then he pressed play. The video opened in my living room. Tuesday, 6:14 p.m. I remembered that evening clearly. I'd stayed late at work. Daniel had texted me. "Take your time. Mom and I are unpacking." The front door opened. Daniel walked in first, loosening his tie. Linda followed carrying 2 wine glasses. She moved through my house as if she belonged there. That thought stung more than it should have. Daniel poured wine while Linda sat on the couch. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "She still thinks this was her idea." Daniel laughed quietly. "Rachel likes believing she's in control." My chest tightened. Linda sipped her wine. She signed everything without really reading it. Exactly what we expected. Daniel nodded. "We just need 1 more week. Once the refinance is finalized, the title transfer will look routine." I stopped breathing. The title transfer. Linda leaned closer. "And she still hasn't noticed the power of attorney clause." Daniel smirked. "She trusts me." The ease in his voice shattered something inside me. Not because he betrayed me, but because he sounded so calm doing it. Linda smiled faintly. "That's the easiest part." Then came the sentence I would replay in my mind for months afterward. "She won't fight it." Not angry. Not cruel. Certain. Like I was predictable. Weak. Manageable. I watched my husband raise his wine glass. To timing. Linda clinked hers against his. To patience. The video ended. The room fell silent. I stared at the black screen, barely recognizing my own reflection. The older man beside me shifted awkwardly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But I barely heard him. Inside me, something fundamental had changed. Not broken. Changed. The woman who entered that house was still hoping to save her marriage. The woman sitting there now understood she had never been invited into the real marriage at all. On the drive home, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought betrayal would feel explosive. Like rage. Like screaming. Like shattered plates and slammed doors. Instead, it felt cold. Precise. Like waking up during surgery and realizing the people standing over you never intended to heal you. When I pulled into the driveway, Daniel came outside smiling. "There you are," he said warmly. We were about to eat. We. Such a small word. Such a dangerous one. Inside, Linda set plates on the table while humming softly. They looked normal. That was the terrifying part. Predators rarely look like monsters when they're certain you trust them. Dinner was unbearable. Not because they argued. Not because they slipped up. Because they acted exactly like a loving family. Daniel asked about my day. Linda complimented my blouse. They laughed over where to hang artwork. Every gesture felt rehearsed now. Every kindness sounded calculated. Then Linda slid a folder across the table. "Updated refinance papers," she said lightly. "No rush." I looked down at the folder. The same folder from the video. The same trap. I smiled. "I'll review it tomorrow." Daniel relaxed immediately. Perfect. That single reaction confirmed everything. That night, I waited until Daniel fell asleep. Then I went downstairs. I watched the video again. And again. And again. Not because I enjoyed torturing myself. Because clarity matters. People survive betrayal by understanding it completely. I opened a folder on my laptop labeled documentation. Then I started saving everything. Over the next 3 days, I became someone new. Not colder. Smarter. I stopped reacting emotionally and started observing carefully. I noticed how Daniel always intercepted the mail first. How Linda monitored financial statements. How they exchanged quick glances whenever paperwork came up. I also noticed something else. They underestimated me completely. That became my advantage. Friday morning, instead of going to work, I drove downtown to a law office. Mark Ellison greeted me in a quiet conference room. He looked like the kind of man who had spent decades watching people lie to each other professionally. I handed him the documents. Then the recordings. Then the USB drive. He reviewed everything silently. When he finally looked up, his expression had hardened. "Have you signed anything?" he asked. "No." "Good." He tapped the power of attorney clause. "This would have given your husband legal authority to transfer ownership. I know. He nodded slowly. They planned this carefully. Hearing someone else say it made it real in a way nothing else had. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't emotional. I was being manipulated. What do I do? I asked quietly. Mark folded his hands. First, you do nothing impulsive. That sentence saved me. Because pain makes people reckless. And reckless people lose. We spent 2 hours building a plan. He filed immediate protections against unauthorized property transfer. Helped me separate finances quietly. Prepared legal documentation in case Daniel attempted anything further. Every step was calm. Professional. Measured. Exactly the opposite of the chaos Daniel expected from me. Before I left, Mark said something I never forgot. They think they're ahead because they started planning first. But the advantage belongs to the person who sees the truth clearly. For the first time in days, I felt steady. Not safe. Steady. That weekend, I performed normality so well it scared even me. I cooked dinner. Watched television with Daniel. Listened to Linda talk about farmers markets. And all the while, I kept gathering evidence. Because once trust dies, attention sharpens. You start seeing everything. Sunday night, I heard them talking in the kitchen. She's ready, Daniel murmured. I told you patience works, Linda replied. My stomach twisted. Not because of the betrayal anymore. Because they genuinely believed I was too weak to see through them. That was the final insult. Monday arrived bright and warm. The papers waited on the dining table. Pens beside the signature lines. Daniel looked almost excited. Linda tried too hard to appear casual. I sat down slowly. You understand the power of attorney section? Daniel asked carefully. I nodded. It's temporary, right? Exactly. He smiled. The same smile I once loved. Now it looked like a mask. I picked up the pen. Both of them leaned forward slightly. Then the doorbell rang. Daniel frowned. You expecting someone? No, I said calmly. I walked to the door, opened it, and smiled for the first time all week. Good evening, Rachel, Mark said. Beside him stood a court officer holding documents. Behind me, I heard Daniel stand abruptly. What's going on? I stepped aside. Please come in. The next few minutes changed all our lives permanently. The court officer formally notified Daniel of the fraud investigation and property protections. Linda immediately tried regaining control. This is a misunderstanding. Mark remained calm. It isn't. Daniel turned toward me stunned. You filed legal action? I protected myself. You didn't trust me enough to talk first? The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I reached into my purse and placed the USB drive on the table. I saw the footage. Silence. Absolute silence. Daniel's face emptied of color. Linda recovered first. That proves nothing. It proves plenty, Mark replied. I looked directly at Daniel. You said I wouldn't fight back. His mouth opened. Closed. No defense came. Because truth leaves people strangely speechless when they finally realize they've been caught. Then came the moment that mattered most. Not the legal documents. Not the recordings. Not even the exposure. The moment Daniel looked at me differently. For the first time in years, he truly saw me. Not predictable. Not passive. Not manageable. Equal. Maybe even dangerous. You planned this, he whispered. No, I replied calmly. I prepared. That difference mattered. Because revenge destroys people. Preparation saves them. After Mark and the court officer left, silence swallowed the house. The dinner remained untouched on the table. Wine glasses half full. The illusion finally broken. Daniel sat heavily in his chair. So that's it? I looked at him quietly. You ended this long before tonight. Linda scoffed. You're overreacting. I turned toward her slowly. You tried to steal my home. We were securing financial stability. You said I wouldn't notice. She looked away first. That told me everything. An hour later, Daniel packed his suitcase. Linda packed hers too. At the front door, Daniel hesitated. I didn't think you were capable of this. I met his eyes steadily. Neither did I. He gave a sad little smile. And for a brief moment, I saw the man I once loved beneath all the manipulation. That hurt. Because people rarely become monsters overnight. Usually, they become selfish first, then entitled, then dishonest. And eventually they convince themselves their betrayal is reasonable. That's the most frightening transformation of all. When they finally left, the silence felt enormous. I stood alone in the hallway listening to their car disappear down the street. And then something unexpected happened. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I could finally breathe again. Over the next several months, everything changed. Daniel tried apologizing at first. Long emails. Late-night calls. Carefully worded messages about misunderstandings and pressure and mistakes. But apologies lose power once you hear someone discuss your trust like a weakness. Linda never apologized. That didn't surprise me. People like Linda rarely believe they're wrong. Only unlucky. The divorce process was long but straightforward. The recordings mattered. So did the documents. So did the footage. In the end, Daniel walked away with far less than he expected. And I walked away with something far more valuable than the house. Myself. The strange thing about betrayal is that it forces rebirth. You cannot remain the same person after discovering someone carefully planned your destruction while smiling across the dinner table. Either you collapse, or you evolve. I evolved. Slowly. Painfully. But completely. About a year later, I repainted the living room. Not because I hated the old color. Because I wanted the house to stop feeling like evidence. I donated the antique cabinet Linda loved so much. I changed the furniture placement. Opened the curtains wider. Filled the rooms with plants. Little by little, the house became mine again. Not ours. Mine. That distinction healed something deep inside me. One evening, nearly 18 months after everything happened, I sat on the back porch watching rain slide down the windows. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. For one terrible second, my stomach tightened exactly the way it had the day of the call. Then I opened it. It was from the previous owner. Just wanted to say, I hope you're doing okay. I smiled softly. For the first time in a very long time, I realized I truly was. I typed back. You helped more than you know. Then I put my phone away and listened to the rain. People always imagine betrayal as loud. They imagine screaming matches, thrown rings, dramatic exits. But the most dangerous betrayals happen quietly. In paperwork. In hidden clauses. In whispered conversations you were never meant to hear. And sometimes survival looks quiet too. Sometimes survival is patience. Sometimes it's documentation. Sometimes it's sitting at your own dining table while the people trying to deceive you smile confidently, completely unaware that the game already ended days ago. I used to think strength meant trust. Now I understand something different. Strength is paying attention when your instincts whisper that something feels wrong. Strength is staying calm long enough to see people clearly. Strength is realizing love without respect eventually becomes exploitation. And strength, real strength, is refusing to let betrayal turn you cruel. Because I could have destroyed Daniel. Legally. Financially. Publicly. But destruction wasn't what I wanted. I wanted freedom. There's a difference. And freedom tastes a lot like sitting alone in a quiet house that no longer feels haunted. Sometimes I still think about that phone call. About how close I came to ignoring it. How close I came to signing those papers. How close I came to losing everything because I trusted the wrong people too completely. But regret no longer follows those thoughts. Gratitude does. Because the truth arrived before it was too late. Not everyone gets that chance. I did. And when the moment came, I finally chose myself.